I think a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us, can have a hard time saying no to people. I think sometimes we're afraid that other people will be disappointed or let down, or maybe even not like us as much anymore. Sometimes we feel guilty. Oh, they need help, and if I don't help them, who will? So I kind of have to, don't I? And sometimes stuff sounds like fun. We don't want to miss out on something that's fun, so we say yes to that too. And we say yes, and we say yes, and we say yes. And if we're not careful, at least for me, if I'm not careful, pretty soon my whole week fills up or my whole month fills up, and I'm said yes to way too many things, and I don't know how I'm going to get them all done. And I'm staying up late and getting up early trying to finish everything. In Luke 4, which I was reading just a few weeks ago, this thing jumped out at me in a way I'd never noticed it before. Jesus has been spending a few weeks in the small trading and fishing village of Capernaum, and he's just started out on the scene. He doesn't have any disciples yet. He doesn't have any followers, and Capernaum's really the first place he stayed and taught. And after spending a few weeks there, and he's healed their sick and brought people back from near death, and the people of Capernaum seem to have really loved him. One day they wake up and he's gone. He's missing. Nobody knows where he is. And so they send out search parties into the hills, into the surrounding countryside, looking for him. And when some people finally find him, I guess it becomes obvious that he wasn't really planning on coming back, because they start to beg. They're like, Jesus, don't go, don't leave us, stay, come back to Capernaum, please. And Jesus looks at these people who he's spent the last few weeks with. He's gotten to know their families. He's healed their loved ones. And he says, no. He says, I've got to go share the good news of the kingdom of God with other places too. That's why I'm here. And he's gone. He leaves. And as I read that, and as I thought about that, I thought about how it would have felt to have been one of those people from Capernaum, begging Jesus not to leave you. And he leaves anyway. He's just walks away. I feel like that could have felt terrible, almost like a betrayal or abandonment. And I think about Jesus. If I was in Jesus's shoes, and people who I spent the last few weeks with and gotten to know, and they'd let me into their homes, and they'd fed me, and they'd listened to me, and I loved them, and they're begging me not to leave, I don't know that I could do it. I don't know that I could actually say no. But Jesus says no. And it's okay. It's okay to say no. And as I thought about this, and I thought about other stories from the New Testament, they started popping out in my mind. Jesus actually says no to people a lot. He says no to people who are asking to see miracles. He says no to people who are asking to be healed. He says no to people who are asking for his advice. He says no to people who are trying to give him advice or help him or protect him or defend him even. He says no to people who are asking to follow him. He even says no to his own mom. She says, hey, could you stop teaching for a little bit and come talk to me? And he says no. And yeah, a couple of these requests are manipulative, and it's important if people are asking you in a manipulative way to do something. It's important to protect yourself and say no to those things. But a lot of these things are good. They're people trying to help Jesus, or people asking Jesus for help with good things. If we focus in on the Capernaum story specifically, they're saying, stay and teach us more about God. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And if Jesus had stayed in Capernaum, he probably could have done a lot of good. The Capernaum people would have been happy. He would have healed more sick people. He would have taught them a lot about God and God's kingdom. It could have been great for them. But Jesus wanted to go and share the good news of God's kingdom with as many places as he could. And he couldn't possibly do that and say yes to Capernaum at the same time. He had to choose. He could only say yes to one, and he had to say no to the other. And if Jesus had said yes to Capernaum, he would have been saying no to basically all the rest of the New Testament. All of the people who he met and the lives that he changed and the people who he taught and discipled. He wouldn't even have met most of his disciples, and he wouldn't have met the various lepers and paralyzed people and blind people and sick people, the woman at the well, the Roman centurion, the 5,000 people who he fed. He wouldn't have, and none of that would have happened. Saying yes to the good thing that Capernaum was asking to do would have come at an enormous cost. It would have cost Jesus what he wanted to do with his life, what he felt the mission of his life was. And I think sometimes we know deep down inside that we want to say no to something. But we feel like there's a way we can still spare the other person's feelings. We want to soften the blow. And so we don't say no to them. We say, maybe, yeah, I'll think about it. You know, I'll get back to you, but probably. And we think, oh, yeah, okay, I did something good. I can still back out later, but I've spared their feelings. Everybody wins here. But we haven't done something good. We haven't helped them. We're actually being selfish because we're just putting off the bad feeling of saying no later. And if we do finally come around and say, oh, hey, you know, something came up and I can't really do it, I'm sorry, days or weeks later, we've cost them time that they could have spent asking somebody else to help or asking somebody else to come instead. We've robbed them of that opportunity to get the help that they need. And if we do feel guilty enough that we end up doing it anyway, even though we don't want to, we're not going to enjoy that experience. We're going to be miserable and grumbling and potentially even get mad at them for making us do it when we don't want to. And that's the other thing. They're never going to know that we didn't even want to do it because we didn't tell them. And they might ask us to do it again and again and again. And I know that this has happened to me. I get resentful at them. I'm like, why do they keep asking me to do this? I hate doing it. And it's because I never told them no. They have no idea I don't like doing it. And so, I think like when Jesus says in Matthew 5, when Jesus says, let your yes be yes and your no be no, I don't think he's just saying, keep your promises after you've made them. I think he's also saying, only say yes to things you actually want to say yes to. And say no to everything else. There's people in Jesus' lifetime who come up to Jesus and say, Jesus, I want to follow you. I want to be your student. I want to be your disciple. And Jesus says, are you really sure you do, though? I don't know that. I'm not so sure. I don't think you really do want to say yes to this. I think you should go home and think about it some more. Jesus doesn't even want us to say yes to Jesus unless we really mean it. He only wants us saying yes to things that we really want to say yes to. And the author of Colossians as well, in Colossians 3, when he says, do whatever you do it with a glad heart. I don't think he's just saying, whatever you get stuck doing, suck it up and have a good attitude about it. I think he's saying, do the things that bring you joy. Do things that bring you life that you really love doing, and use those things to love others, and use those things to advance the kingdom and to spread your unique salt and light to the rest of the world. Say yes to the very best yeses you possibly can, and then protect that yes and say no to everything else. Say no to anything that would distract you or pull you away from that good yes. Even if you're saying no to things that are good, even if you're saying no to things that are fun. It's okay to say no.